সো উই আর লাইভ। সবাইকে আরো একবার স্বাগত ডিজিটাল আইডিয়াস এর পর্দায়। অবশ্যই আমরা চলে এসেছি আপনাদের প্রিয় ইউরো কাপের দ্য প্রিভিউ শো নিয়ে। আজকের যারা গেস্ট রয়েছেন তাদের সঙ্গে সুমন দা আপনাদের পরিচয় করে দেবে। সুমন দা।
Yeah, I mean, one more guest is yet to join, so he's joining shortly. That is Shilton Paul, former I-League winning captain, as well as he's the present goalkeeper of Churchill Brothers, one of the finest goalkeepers of Indian football in the last couple of decades. And now, let me introduce with the existing guests we have. First, I'd be warmly welcome Mark Jackson. This is your first show in this season for Digital Ideas. Last year, we had a lovely chat. Thanks to Andy for that as well. And this time again, we are having you back in the Euro preview show. Let me introduce Mark. Mark has been the under-23 head coach of Leeds United, who won the Premier League in under-23 stage this season. At the same time, I mean, Mark is also the first assistant coach of Marcelo Bielsa in the first team of Leeds United. At the same time, we have one of the finest youth development coaches in Europe at the moment, Andy Cooper, who has been a terrific football analyst as well. And we have seen some sort of a glimpse of that of late on the page of Digital Ideas, as well as on the YouTube channel of Digital Ideas. And of course, we have Anirban with us. First of all, Andy and Mark, welcome to the Euro preview show of Digital Ideas.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here and talk some football.
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Suman, and welcome to Mark as well.
Yeah, good to see you, Coops.
Yes. So the first question would be to Andy. Like, you are former Leeds United, Andy is the present Leeds United. How do you see one of your favorite students, Kelvin Phillips, and England's possibilities today? England will be playing today, and more importantly, a win today will seal their berth in the knockout stage. First with Andy, and I'll go to Mark after that, because Mark has trained him this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a big surprise for many the way that England set up in the last game, and Calvin playing a bit more of an advanced role ahead of Declan Rice, and able to break forward into spaces and get into the box as well. And it'd be interesting to see how they're set up today, whether they go for the same again, or whether with Scotland maybe dropping off and maybe playing a little bit deeper and more compact, whether they go for a bit more guile and creativity higher up the pitch with players like Grealish who can unlock defences. And well, in terms of Calvin's progress, I think he's been lauded over the last week for his performance, which has been great. Obviously, when you work within an academy, he was already a first team player when I was there, so I can't take any credit. But when you see him work daily and you see that he comes back and the way he gives his time up for the academy, for the coaches, his humility around the place, and what he's done for the city that we're in, it's a huge impact having one of your own making a stand on the international stage, and it must be equally as proud for Jacko as well, because someone who's worked with him throughout his time as well.
Brilliant. I'll be coming to Mark. প্রসঙ্গত সবাইকে জানিয়ে রাখি, মার্ক এই সিজনে কেলভিন ফিলিপস ইংল্যান্ডের ন্যাশনাল টিমের মিডফিল্ডার, তাকে ট্রেন করেছেন লিডস ইউনাইটেড, কারণ মার্ক লিডস ইউনাইটেডের ফার্স্ট টিমের অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট কোচ এবং under-23 হেড কোচ. He was the first assistant of Marcelo Bielsa as well. So, I mean, how much pride did you have when you saw Kelvin Phillips playing with flying colours, and more importantly, he was really dictating the terms against Croatia the other day, World Cup runners-up. And did you expect this kind of a performance straight away into the international level when Kelvin Phillips got the chance for the national team in this Euro?
Well, listen, it's first and foremost, I think everybody who's connected with Leeds United, whether you're a fan or you're a member of staff who work there, you know the qualities that Calvin possesses. Would anybody have thought he'd have gone into a game of such a high-profile game and made such an impact? Probably not. But it wasn't a surprise that he managed to play like that. I think what impressed me more, and the more you see around Calvin with his interviews, what he does, and the way he interacts with the players in and around the camp. You see clips on the TV and things like that, is how relaxed he is and how calm he is. And I think that was a major factor within his performance. He looked calm, he looked assured, He looked really, really confident and comfortable where he was. To say it was, his first international tournament. So listen, like Andy said there, Calvin was an established player even when I arrived at the club. I've had the pleasure of seeing him work at close hand this season. He's played a couple of games when he was coming back from injury in the 23s as well. And just how he impacts those around him is fantastic to see. So listen, I'm with everybody else who's a Leeds fan and a Leeds employee within the academy. I'm immensely proud of him. Immensely proud.
Well, going back to yesterday's games, we'll definitely talk about that as well. And I'm coming back to Andy, actually. Andy, I mean, as we predicted as well, we've seen similar things to happen. But how do you rate the performance of Denmark against Belgium? They were absolutely brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they captured the people's hearts in the tournament, how they set up and how they played. No kind of lasting effects from what happened straight on with business. Really, really impressive performance by them. And, I did think your predictions and my predictions might have been turned on its head at one point with that early goal. With a team you can see they're going to play Belgium, trying to play out from the back and getting caught. But it's only when you look towards that bench, they say about teams in tournaments only as strong as the bench. And when they look at the Belgian bench and they look at how they change a game and the players that can then bring on and have an effect, their class showed in the end. But full credit to Denmark. I think at a tournament that, I know that some people who I've worked with in the past from Denmark, and they said that football for them they lost, but Denmark won in the sense that they have the national pride and the way they've captured people's hearts with how they've approached the really unfortunate circumstances of last week.
Brilliant. I'll be coming back to Mark. I mean, of course, it's a seesaw battle. A lot of rivalries will come into play tonight when England will be taking on Scotland. How do you see, tonight's game as a pundit, to be precise? Because, we have seen Scotland to go down against the Czech Republic the other day. Patrick Schick scored a couple of magnificent goals against, the Scotland the other day. But, on a very honest perspective, Scotland literally dictated the terms against Czech Republic the other day. How do you see today's matchup?
Well, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be, I hope to see anyway, and I think you'll see more of a traditional game, maybe a traditional English Premier League game, because there's such an array of players who compete in the Premier League. One thing international football is it's a little bit slower, it's a little bit more tactical. I think tonight you might see a little bit more pace and energy and directness in the play. Saying that as well, I think Scotland truly believe that they could get a victory in the first game. I think it's them losing the game now makes it where they have to come out a little bit, and I think that suits England, that suits us, because when teams come out at us, we can exploit them. It's a little bit more difficult if they sit back. If they have the tactics to sit back, like Andy said before, you might need a little bit more guile and creativity in there. But at some point in the game, with Scotland losing the first game, I think they're going to have to come out and attack England and have a go. And I think that's going to suit England a little bit more with the pace and the kind of attacking impetus we have in the team.
Well, coming back to Andy. Andy, yesterday Netherlands also played against Austria, and we all know Austria. They were, absolutely brilliant against North Macedonia as well. With every due respect to the North Macedonian side. And honestly, we have seen how they played against Netherlands in the first half as well. But how do you see Netherlands' performance? Do you think they are basically a second half team, or they are becoming a second half team more than a first half team?
I think it was settled by how Austria really wanted to play. They didn't really seem to have too much impetus to want to play, and they were looked a bit lost, to be honest. And I don't think the system at the start that Netherlands played with that back three, but once the gaps start to appear later in the games, and like Mark says, more of a tactical game, once them gaps start to appear and you get Frenkie de Jong being able to dominate and dictate play and move the ball around, I thought once he got going and was able to drive the ball forward, they looked a real attacking threat. So much improved, and I think it's always be aware of them kind of teams that don't capture much headlights or highlights at the start of tournaments, but slowly creep through and gather momentum. And maybe at the start of games they're getting off to slow starts and maybe people questioning a slight takeaway from the usual traditional method of playing. But you can still see that they're trying to play through, trying to get on the ball, and quality in midfield to overrun the opposition.
Well, coming back to Mark. Mark, we have a question from Rudra Chaudhary, and we'll be taking this question. It's great to see experts all together here. So what should be Portugal's strategy to continue their winning legacy?
Well, I don't class myself as an expert anyway, but listen, that's nice, and I'm glad to be joined with everybody just to talking football. But certainly Portugal are one of the teams who, for me, look really, really strong. They've got a formidable leader in there in Ronaldo, but they've got quality all around. They've got quality all around in their team. Listen, when you're in a tournament, even though you've won the tournament before, I think Andy mentioned it before, it's about building that momentum. There's also little bits of element of luck when you're in a tournament competition as well. But it's just about kind of maintaining that momentum. And like with any team, you'll try and build the momentum going forward. Hope that you avoid injuries and suspensions and things like that. And it's all kind of dictated by the draws as well. And sometimes, getting through to the latter stage of a tournament and even winning a tournament sometimes can be dictated by, the teams you play at a particular time, whether those draws and those routes to the final are created in a positive or way which can be a real challenge. But I think for any team, it's about building momentum within performance from the start of the competition, with that little bit of luck as well, with injuries and keeping everybody fit. But listen, there's some fantastic players in every team. Portugal, England, every team have got fantastic players, so it's that momentum for me.
Well, Andy, I'd be coming back to you for the next question, but Shreyajit Kashnovis has a question for Mark, and this is a question which every one of us will definitely have. You have seen Marcelo Bielsa, a legend, very, very closely. How has been the experience in the last season working with Marcelo Bielsa?
Well, listen, I say this all the time. I'm in a really privileged position to be working in such close quarters with a manager like Marcelo. To be able to observe what he's doing from close hand is really, really, eye-opening. And I've not even been in the job for 12 months yet. But the amount of things I've learned just through observations, and I'm privileged to be able to have discussions with him on occasions as well, to try and kind of learn from him and implement that kind of philosophy and methodology into how we play at the under-23s. And we've done that fairly successfully this year. But I was having a conversation with someone the other day, and I've really only scratched the surface of, learning of what I could potentially learn from the manager. So I'll be looking to build on that now and looking forward into next season as well. But it's been a fantastic experience.
Well, coming back to Andy. Andy, I have a question regarding today's game. In fact, we have seen how destructive Patrick Schick can be. The goal which he has scored against Scotland the other day could easily go down as one of the finest goals of all time in the history of Euro Cup. Today, Croatia would be up against them. Possibly there'd be Petkovic, who would be starting on the front in place of Rebic. Rebic might play from the right flank. How do you see Croatia's chances of making a comeback into this particular group?
Yeah, that goal was probably, for me, ahead of the David Beckham one. And the only reason it's brought up so much with us is that Jacko and I worked with Neil Sullivan, who was the fortunate goalkeeper on that infamous day. So it always gets brought up. But yeah, what a finish. I like the little look before he received it as well. And then to set it off outside the post was superb. Yeah, I will be watching that game, but it's difficult when England are playing because all thoughts are on that one as on the main event for us. But a huge game in the group, and obviously the outcome of that goes on to play the potential second place or first place in the group with England, goes on to play Group F, which has the group of death with Portugal, Germany, and France in. So I think it's going to be a massive opportunity, probably quite a more evenly matched game, I think. I don't think it is going to be as straightforward with Czech Republic on a bit of a high from the game against Scotland. So I would probably put my neck out for a bit of a tighter game there. More of a tactical battle, I'd imagine.
Brilliant. I'd be coming to Mark. I mean, there were a lot of criticism as we started the discussion about the England team selection the other day, despite the fact that they had a 1-0 victory over Croatia. But people asked why Trippier on the left when you have the likes of Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell. Why you have opted to keep Jadon Sancho out of the first 18 squad as well. So many questions were there about the team selection. Sterling proved why he was crucial, scored a brilliant goal. How do you see, as per your thoughts about Southgate's thought process in selecting the first 11? And of course, I mean, how do you see England's team today going forward?
Well, looking on the selection, that's always going to exist from fans. That's why football's fantastic for players, because it brings up debate. Everybody has their opinion. Everybody has their preference. But what I think Southgate has done well is proved that he's willing to make big decisions. And I think the big decision in the last game was Trippier and actually starting Calvin as well. But only truly a manager knows who is in with his players on a daily basis as to, the whys, ins and outs, whether he shares that with everybody else. There's obviously a reason he thought Trippier could play, even though he's normally right back, he can play on the left-hand side. And probably people looked at the game thinking this is a game at Wembley and we're playing two traditionally holding midfielders. But it became really apparent during the game that obviously Calvin was pushing forward a lot more, and the real sitter in there was Declan Rice. So he's probably seen that Calvin, although he's played in a defensive role for Leeds this season, he's probably seen in the time where he's worked with him that he can get into advanced positions as well. So there's always a kind of logic behind any manager's team selection, and I'm sure Gareth Southgate knows truly why he's done certain things. Do I think there'll be many changes for the game tonight? Probably not. I think Maguire's declared himself fit now. Whether England bring him in for his experience, but you look at that and you look at Tyrone Mings and John Stones that did ever so well in the first game, and particularly Tyrone Mings deals with long balls into the box really, really well, which Scotland could do. That was kind of a tactic of theirs in the first game. But for me, it's Foden's a fantastic talent. Really, really good talent, really exciting player. You want to see him. There's certain players in a team which I think people have spoken about being undroppable, like Harry Kane, obviously the captain of the team, and certain players, but the younger players, I don't think Gareth Southgate will be afraid to mix that up. So, the only question mark I've got today is maybe a look at starting Grealish in there instead of Foden, or maybe bringing Grealish in at a kind of later stage in the game to impact the game. But I don't think he'll be afraid of making decisions. But I don't think we're going to see many changes in the team. And one thing for sure, I think he'll stick with a midfield three, particularly Phillips, Rice, and Mount. Phillips in particular, I don't think he'll change that. But you're going to get them questions every game. People disagreeing, agreeing, but ultimately at the end of 90 minutes, the result will tell.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be coming back to the question of Shoptik, but before that, I'll go to Andy for asking a question. Andy, I mean, as Mark said about Jack Grealish, don't you think he's the best playmaker of this English side?
Yeah, potentially, but you've got to look when you say Phil Foden as well and how exciting they are in them advanced positions. I think it's a really good period for English football now. And if you look at how well a lot of the lads have done coming through the youth programmes internationally with England as well, winning World Cups and such like, being in big major moments in youth football, that they've prepared themselves and they've had a bit more of a a logical approach now in bleeding youngsters and blooding them in and Southgate being able to make them big decisions. Like Mike says, I don't think there will be loads of changes, but also there doesn't need to be when he's got players that he trusts and he believes in a certain way of playing. You know, he's had that. It's not just one style of playing with England, and that's what we've seen over recent years. He's been able to switch to three at the back and maybe have more advanced players, you know, Reece James or Walker flying down the wings as wing backs. And then depending on who the opposition and how they set up as well. So Scotland have got potentially, you know, talented young player like Billy Gilmore, and I know Tierney they want to potentially bring in. And that adds a different element to how they play. And maybe they won't have to then sit back, set up and be defensive and try and catch England on the counter, which is what England will really be after. So if they open up the game and Scotland try and play, then you can use them players like Grealish, like you mentioned, who have got that, you know, I don't like to compare them with players of past generations, but I love to see players when they can run. And we've had a real area of possession-based football, you know, worldwide, and obviously Spain with the success they had and keeping the ball and moving the ball. But I think it's great when you see players running at defenders and beating them and taking them on the inside and outside 1v1. You know, these kind of training sessions where you put touch limits on and you stop them being able to do stuff. And it's always been an old adage to me of don't stop the dribbler dribbling. And that's what Grealish is. He can take players on and open up and attract more players around, which frees space up for other players to run off. So I do think he'll get an opportunity to play, whether it's the start. But like Mark said, I fully imagine him by, you know, 60 minutes, he'll be on and having an impact.
Absolutely. I mean, Mark would be having a question. I mean, this is a question from Soptik Saha. And the question is, my question is to Mark, is that what's his views on Patrick Bamford? Can he be England's number 9 in the next World Cup?
Well, I think Patrick Bamford had a real shout of being involved in this group of players for what he's achieved in his time at Leeds, and particularly this season as well. He's had a fantastic season, but I think the manager Gareth Southgate has got such an array of players to choose from now. I think we're in a real kind of, I don't want to say golden generation, but a real period of time where we've got fantastic players which we can utilise. So obviously people have to miss out, but I don't think Patrick Bamford could have done any more than he did this season to give himself a chance. Looking forward into the next group, yeah, why not? 100%. If he continues his progression as a player, which I fully expect him to do, you know, ultimately you want strikers to score goals, and he's proved this year that he can score goals in the Premier League, which is the highest level he's playing at. So now he'll be just trying to, you know, get that opportunity to prove he can do that on the international stage. So whether that'll come in the next qualifiers and the games after the Euros, and hopefully, but for me as a Leeds fan, Leeds employee, I want to see Leeds players in the England team, and you know, he could be one player who could really push.
Well, we have a question from Shobuj Menon. We'll be taking that, but before that, we'll be going to Andy. Andy, how do you see Czech Republic's chances of going through to the next stage from here on? Because even a draw against Croatia will open their chances.
Yeah, I do think they've got it all to play for, and I think it's going to be more of a tactical battle than maybe a more slower paced game than we've seen in the group so far. I think they'll be both very cagey. Obviously, it's going to get to a stage where Croatia are going to have to risk it if things aren't happening when you get later on in these games in the group stage. But I do think Czech Republic have probably got enough to edge it. I don't think there'll be a lot in it. And then it'll all be set up for them final games, and obviously England will play Czech Republic in the final group stage.
Well, Mark, we have a question from Sabuj Maroon, and the question is like, Hugo Lloris is 34. Can we will see Meslier in the between the stakes for France in the 2022 World Cup? Of course, Meslier had been brilliant this season for Leeds United.
He's been one of the standout players for Leeds, and I think his performances will only get better. He's a very, very young player in goalkeeper terms as well. So when you say that Lloris is 34, that's not that old for a goalkeeper. You know, the goalkeepers play a little bit longer, and experience is vital. at the top level, international football, when you're a goalkeeper or any player, but particularly a goalkeeper. Do I see him breaking through into the France team in the near future? Yes, 100%. Because I've seen him work, I've seen him play day to day and week to week in the Premier League, and the play will only get better. He's only developing at the minute. He's going to get better. He's going to get stronger, and I think he's going to be a real talent and a real force on the international scene in years to come.
Well, my question to Andy now. I mean, of course, we have seen very few draws in this entire competition so far. So, how do you see this as a transformation in the history of this competition? Because even in the last Euro edition as well, we have seen so many games to settle for a draw. So, but this time around, we have seen every now and then there is a result. Very few games when ending up in a stalemate.
Yeah, I think in a lot of tournaments you get games decided by a single goal in the early stages. Maybe traditionally more in World Cups where there's maybe one weaker team that take a little bit more of a punishment. But it's been tight. I think it's probably a stage of that. The games are massively overanalyzed. Everything's broken down. Everything's cagey. It's like a chess match at the moment. But at times when you see later on in games, they do open up, and it obviously gives opportunities for either individual skill and brilliance or potential mistakes that can obviously cost games. So I do think there might be a draw in one of the games today, though. I'd probably maybe pick at the Croatia-Czech Republic on a low. I'm on a good roll at the minute with the predictions from yesterday, so it could be tough one. But, I do think that as we get later stages, obviously in these last round of games, obviously I know there can't be draws when you get through to knockout stages, but in these last group stages, you're going to start to have teams that are going to have to risk it and go for results. And when that happens, at the other end, you leave yourself vulnerable. You leave yourself open to counter-attacks and obviously being overloaded at the back. So you might get to see a couple of draws over the next few days, but then I think the last round of fixtures will be more results again.
Brilliant. We have a question from Soptik Saha again. Hello, Mark. I'm a Man United fan. Would love to know more about the rivalry with Leeds. The most part of me watching the United play, Leeds was playing in the second division until a couple of seasons back when they made it to the Premier League. So I'd love to know more about this rivalry. I'd like to request you to recollect some of your memories of 1997-2000 when you used to represent Leeds as a player.
Listen, it was massive, particularly as a Leeds player. When I used to play, you used to feel the rivalry. And listen, I think rivalries like this is something that we're all, striving for and can't wait to see again. Fans back in the stadiums fully, so the fans can be they can have their rivalry with each other. And I've said to some players who are at Leeds at the minute, and I've said, listen, when we play Man U and the fans are back in there, you really feel the rivalry, and that's how I can describe it. Really, you can actually feel it. When the fans are in there, you can feel the tension, you can feel the excitement. I think you only have to look at the Leeds fans' reaction to the opening fixture of the season for Leeds. Having Man United away, it'll be hopefully we're in a position where fans can be present. But no, the rivalry is fierce. The games are tough, and we saw last year Leeds didn't come out on top at Old Trafford, but I think the way Leeds played in that game won a lot of plaudits. They kept going forward, they kept trying to score, and I think that was kind of reignited it again. I think a lot of fans, like the guy who posed the question there, that some people haven't seen the rivalry yet, but once it's there with the fans back in the stadium, if you ever get present to feel that, then you can actually feel the rivalry and the tension, which is good, which is what we all want. That's what football's about for the fans.
Absolutely. Well, there are a lot of Jack Grealish fans in India. Of course, understandable. Questions are coming like, should Jack Grealish start tonight from the beginning of the game? I think both Mark and Andy have answered this question, but still, in yes or no, what do you think?
I would start him instead of Sterling. I don't mind. I just think he's an exciting player. But I would if I'm Gareth Southgate, and I think he won't start personally, but I would like to see him start.
Mark?
I agree with Andy there that I think, you know, he's got a chance of starting. For me, it would be probably in place of Foden, if anything. I don't think it will happen, and that's not to say that I think Foden's a fantastic player. You know, he's going to make a real impact in this tournament. I would keep Sterling on, and if I was going to start him, I would start him ahead of Foden. But I truly think that he'll stick with Foden, Sterling, and Kane, and Grealish will make an impact from the bench in this particular game.
Well, thank you so much. We'll go for a quick prediction, as we always do. To start with, Mark, first game, Slovakia versus Sweden. Your prediction?
I'm going for a 1-1 draw there. 1-1 draw.
Andy?
Yeah, same here. Go for a draw.
Second game, Croatia versus Czech Republic. Mark?
I think I'm going to go again there. I'm going to go with a close game, but I'm going to go with a 2-1 win for Croatia.
Andy?
I'll go for a draw. You know, you talked about not having any. I think it's going to be slightly different today. I'll go for a draw. Not on the last game though.
The last game, we all would be saying it's up 3 lines. But still, Scotland versus England.
3-0 victory for England for me. 3-0.
Andy?
2-0. 2-0 England. Interestingly, reading about the lack of, you think of traditional powerhouses of our top 4 or top 6, as the clubs mentioned, no Manchester United, Liverpool, Arsenal players starting in the last game. When you think of traditions of where the players come from, it just shows how the game's evolving and the clubs are producing so many talented young players that are coming through. Obviously, Grealish, another one that we've discussed, Foden as well. So, yeah, I do think England will be too strong.
Thank you so much, Andy. Thank you so much, Mark. It was a wonderful discussion we had. Of course, all the fans who have witnessed this show, I think it's a kind of a relief as well in the monotony in the pandemic situation as well. We are all enjoying this Euro Cup. And of course, I'm sure you all are enjoying this Euro preview and a review show as well. Hope for another crackerjack night with some amazing games coming up. Stay tuned for tomorrow as well at 4:30 p.m. We'll be coming up with another special show on display. Thank you so much, Mark. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.